Welcome back. This is part 3 of the Beetle wiring. Before I go any farther into this, I had a person ask me, explain the wiring schematic. How do you read a schematic? First off, let's understand a circuit. So let's say that you have your power source here, okay? And let's say we're working with DC, okay? And that's what your car runs on, is direct current. It's not AC. It's basically the same but different. AC has a hot side, a neutral, and then a ground. The DC has just a positive and a negative, or a positive and a ground. So let's just work with DC first and not confuse you too much. Let's say that we have a power source here that's a battery, okay? And the battery, just say you're dealing with a battery, the big post is the positive and the little post is the negative, okay? And the negative usually goes to a chassis ground. Okay, that's what that little symbol is right there. And you'll find them all over in the schematic, here and here and here. So all your devices in this, your door switches, your interior light, you know, your lights, turn signals, they're chassis ground. So essentially what you're doing is you're attaching this to a point on the body of the car. Okay, you're attaching this to the point on a body of a car, and then because the whole car is metal, unless you're up north, then it was once metal. Yeah, I know. I used to live up north, and we had issues with our cars because most of the time it was a ground issue, because the salt and such would eat the body and stuff. Okay, so let's go back to the circuit here. And then you have excuse me, a device. You know, let's just call this a light bulb, okay? And the light bulb, all right. And now you want the light bulb to work, right? Okay. So the light bulb, you have a switch, and the switch simply makes contact by coming down and connecting the two. So you would have positive, and the positive would come out to the switch, and the light bulb here would be grounded, okay, to your chassis ground, okay, and the other end would go to the it'd go to the positive side of it. Sorry, I didn't mean to put it to ground. And then when you flip the switch down, it would complete the circuit, okay, because this is chassis, and so it would be able to make the full loop, and that's a circuit. Now oftentimes, I don't know if they do this in front of the switch or after the switch. Probably in front of the switch. What they'll do is they will put a little teeny filament, and it will go in and it will come out. And this filament is in a little plastic holder or a little ceramic holder or whatnot like that. And that's called a fuse. And your fuse, just say if it's a 8 amp fuse, your fuse, if you look at it, it narrows greatly. The metal narrows, and therefore the resistance is greater. Resistance. I'm trying to make this as simple as I can. Essentially, if you put too much into that fuse, it will get hot, and it'll get hot in such a way that it'll fracture. It'll break the circuit. And what that does is it protects the wire and the device and the battery from undue stress, as it were. And the fuse keeps the circuit from getting hot. If you put too big of a fuse in it and you've got too much of a load on too small of a wire, things can get hot. So your fuse has to be smaller, of course, than the wire rated at. So if you have a wire here, the wire might be rated at 15 amps, but safe would be 8 amps. Does that make sense? Okay, let's go back to reading the schematic now. Okay, now that you know kind of basically how a circuit works, it works for the same whether it's a light or whether it's the starter, or whether it's a wiper motor, a horn, an interior light, whatever. It works pretty much the same. How do you read a schematic now? First thing, you need to get a book for your car. Okay, if you're using a book that's not for your car, then I can't help you. The Bentley book is always my go-to. This covers these years, 66, 67, 68, and 69. However, this book is compatible, sort of, with all Volkswagens, as they are rudimentary, whatever word I'm trying to use, the same. But they are different. So get a book for your car. If you have a 71 or 72 or Super, use the orange book. I don't think this only goes to 70, correct? Because this is, 69. Yeah. So if you have a newer Beetle or Gia or whatever, get the right book. I'm sure Robert Bentley makes a official service manual for a bus. Because I don't have a bus. I've never had a bus. I'm sure he makes one. I'm sure they make a Type 3 and a Type 4 manual as well. Get one for your car. Okay? It'll have the correct wiring diagram in it. Now, the wiring diagram. This is for this car, and it's 66, 67. But this is I know that this is a transitional car. This is a transitional car, so things are going to be pretty well spot on, but they might change a little bit. And I'll explain that to you in just a little bit. Where was the one I wanted to see? This is the newer one. Yes. This has, I'll explain that to you right now. This has an ignition starter switch right here. But you will not find an ignition starter switch on this because it's on the steering column. Here's the steering column. And here is the wires going to the ignition starter switch. I imagine in these in the index here you will find the ignition starter switch, but it doesn't say it right here, but you know it's a turn signal right there. But if you look at that wire right there, that is a red and black wire. And if you look at this, which is my car, it is only a red wire. They're only red wires, okay? So I wish I had a flashlight. I could show you this. On my car, I'll try to show it to you as best as I can. This wire right here that's coming off my ignition switch, it's red and black. Yeah. So they did some mid changes. This is a late car. This is a late car because they ran out all the red wires to it, I guess, and they started using red and black for that particular wire. It does not show it on this, but this is the schematic for my car. It does show it on this though. And this is for 68, 69. But this is not my car because this has an electric gas gauge and this has a manual gas gauge. Now, back to the schematic, how to read a schematic. It's like reading a map. Top is going to be north and back is going to be south and west and east. You understand how to read a map, okay? It's kind of the same way. Say I'm looking down on the car from the top. This is the wiring harness laid out. You have both of your headlights and your horn and your left and right turn signal, and of course in the back is your tail lights. Okay, only 1 year for backup lights that are not integrated into your taillights, because this is a 1300 and it doesn't have backup lights. Ooh. So get the schematic for your car, and it shows how everything's laid out. Here's a turn signal. Okay, so above the turn signal is what? Well, that's your instrument cluster, your speedometer. And then off to the right of it's going to be your fuel gauge. And then the hole next to that's going to be light switch. The hole next to that's going to be wiper motor. Below it's the ignition switch. And the hole next to it that Abner drilled a big hole in, I don't know what that's for. So we'll have to fill that or whatever. But never mind. Okay, we're going to go and we're going to look at one circuit. Okay, and the one that I'm interested in is the one I'm interested in today, and that's the starting circuit. Okay, because I want to start the car with a key. Okay, and there's two main wires I'm interested in. Okay, and that's the one that's 50 right there, and you just follow this and it goes to your ignition starter switch. So that is number 50. Okay, that's 50 on the back of your starter switch. That was the smaller of the two big red wires. That was the 12 gauge wire. And then the one coming off the regulator was the 10 gauge wire, the big heavy one that you seen me solder. Okay, and that goes to the light switch, and that goes to number 30 on the light switch. And then a smaller 10 gauge wire also attaches to that. And it'll piggyback on that jumper that I showed you, okay? And then number 30, I can't read that. I don't have two pair of glasses on right now. I can't read that. Goes to the fuse box, okay? And then the fuse box, the first one on the fuse box, and then this goes to okay, and then this goes to J1. And J1 is that device I showed you yesterday that is the turn signal and emergency flasher relay. So you have to have that plugged in, okay? And the reason why you have to have that plugged in is because 15 rides off of that. And 15 comes down here to the first section in your fuse box. And what it does is it's a power wire going to the coil. So the ignition switch does two things when you turn the switch. When you turn the switch, it makes a contact and it gives a signal to the starter that is already grounded. But they didn't draw this very well. Let me help you out. Maybe it's already known that it's grounded. Maybe I'm missing something. Okay, so it's given a signal to that. Hold on just a second, okay? I'm telling you, if it's not a train, it's people mowing the lawn with 19 lawnmowers next door. Okay, when you close this switch, when you close the circuit, when you turn the key, all right, when you turn the key one click, say if the key is moving this way, okay, moving in a clockwise fashion, okay, what it's going to do, it's going to come across and it's going to connect this wire, it's going to make contact with this wire, and it's going to give power from this to this, and it's going to power up the fuse, okay, and then it's going to, where's the black wire? Da 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 da, coil wire. And it's going to power up this wire, this little one that says 1.5, it says number 15, and it's going to go right there to this fuse. And when it powers this, there's a connection right here, and we're going to follow this black wire down, and what it's going to do, oh, it powers the coil. So it powers the coil, powers the electromagnetic cutoff switch, powers the choke. So all that's got to happen is the engine's got to turn, because you're going to get spark now because the ignition coil's on. See, because you've turned this switch, okay, one click, all right, and if you turn it a little bit more, it makes connection here. And so when it makes connection here off of this, because your power's coming through here, coming to this light switch, coming to here, and it's going to come down to here, and it's going to give signal to the starter. And when it gives signal to the starter, it's going to roll it over, roll the engine over, and since you have your ignition coil hot, the engine will start. So that's one circuit, okay? Now there's many circuits on here. There's the little lights that go in your, there's the brake light switch, there's the emergency flashers, there's the regular flashers, horn, lights, high beam, low beam. But it can be all followed because all these wires, let's just take a look at this one here. What do you got here? Green and white, and this is going to come off of this switch. Or is it green and black? That's green and black. That's green and black. And blue. Okay, so this blue one right here is going to come off of here. Yeah. Do-do. Okay, that one's going to go, it's this one's green, black, and white, and it's going to go up to this right here, whatever that is. I think 49 is how it connects, and then this blue one that doesn't have a deal on it is going to go into your emergency flasher switch, that switch that you pull in and out. See, all these are, they're all color coded. So best I can tell you, study this and read this and try to chase one at a time and understand how the energy is coming from the battery to the fuse box, to a switch, and then to the device. So I'm sorry I'm boring you all with this, but somebody had a question I thought I'd answer. Okay, that's enough. Let's go back to trying to get the car to start. Okay, so I have everything rudimentally kind of wired up, sort of, and I'm having a little problem. I do get power to this when I turn the key, and the key does work, but in its second position it will not send a signal to the starter, and I think I know why now. Abner had a big switch in the collection of stuff he couldn't sell on eBay, and that's why there is a big hole drilled here, I think. It was a big, goofy hole, and I cleaned it up for a plug. It looks like it would go for a cigarette lighter, a cigar lighter, but I think Abner had a push button in it. So either that or this one had a push button to start the car. Because if you listen, you can hear the ignition click. That's the solenoid, but it won't crank. So what we're going to do, let's take this ignition out, and I'll bet you it needs a good cleaning. What do you think? Alright, I had to take my steering column out again in order to take this off. The outside of this casing is made out of pot metal, and when I tried to pry apart where each little deal went, it just broke. So probably what we're going to have to do is we can mechanically put that back together, I guess, maybe with some JB Weld or something. This plate is your contact plate, and it's held by springs, and it's extremely greasy, and the contacts on the other side are the same, really greasy. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to clean this up, and these little springs right here, I'm going to give them a little, just a small squeeze in the center to bring them up just a tick more, to put a little more pressure on that, and then we'll put her all together, and we'll gingerly put her in the vise, and we'll JB it back together. Hopefully it'll work. Probably I can hold it together or tape it together and put a screwdriver in the other side of this and turn it, and we will see if we make contact or not. So we'll have to clean those up. Can't really do this while I'm holding the phone, or camera rather. It's not a phone, it's actually a camera. And so there you go. A couple things about doing this. Prepare yourself. Have a nice surface to work on, and bring the work to you. I like to bring the work to me. And these adjustable carts are really nice, and so I can sit down and I'm right here. You know, I'm not straining or bending over. Also, springs like to go flying, so have yourself a nice big work surface so you can find all the parts. Alright, let's clean it up. Try not to get my fat head in the way. There you go. I've cleaned this out. I sprayed it out with lubricant and set that aside. And now I'm cleaning my little plate. How do you know where that plate goes now, Dan? Well, I've taken photographs, see, with my camera, with my cell phone. See, so I know where it goes. All I have to do is look on the camera and it'll tell you where it goes. There's two spots here that are worn pretty bad. Not terribly bad. It's not like worn right through, but it looks like it's worn enough to not make proper contact. A little bit of wear, or rather dirty enough to not make proper contact. I don't think it's wore enough. I don't think it's that wore. Let's have a look at this. A lot of the times these things get gummed up because people load them up with oil and all kinds of things, and then they collect dirt. So, for your listening pleasure, there's a lawnmower and and a train. Okay, so there's our contact. Let's see here. Let's see here. What do we got going on here? How does this work? Does it fall in there? Fall in there? No. Okay, this is... Oh, there's another one right here. Very corroded. Very corroded. Oh, I see why it wouldn't start now. This one's really corroded. The one that's shiny right there must be the one for the power. And that's got to be the one for the starter, I'll bet you. Yes, sir. Let's see if we can get a little emery cloth on that, see if we can clean it up. I'll break the emery cloth out of the Robert J. Allen collection and be right back with you. Although, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this has a nice flat surface to it, but this one's eroded a little bit. So I'm figuring this is the one that's given us problems. And we'll see if we can make this run for a little bit longer. And probably I'll keep my eyes out for an ignition switch. Then this plate here that rubs on that, of course it's upside down, and it rubs on that like that. This is the always hot, and then this long one here steps up on it for the coil, and then it comes around and touches right here. Well, this was eroded down as well. So what I did is I took this little screwdriver, because I was too lazy to get a punch, and I punched it right there and right there, and it put two little dots on the outside of it. And then I put them on my anvil, and I gently tapped it down with a hammer. So now it has much more surface purchase there. So I think this will probably work when we put it together. So let's put it together and test it on the car and see if it works. Okay, I have our ignition switch hooked up again. I just have it wrapped up with some duct tape, and I have it off the steering column. Let's go hook the battery up and see what happens. For some reason I have power to the coil, like right now. So let's look at what we got here. Is that wrong? No, it shouldn't be. Where's my key? It's got a spring inside this. Okay, it's all the way off. I thought it was on. So this unlocks. Now the ignition's on. Disco. Let's see if she'll start it again. out of gas, I think. Yeah, she's out of gas. It works. Alright. Okay. Let me go disconnect the battery. I'll be right back with you. Alright, I got her in the vise. Cleaned her all up with some lacquer thinner. Glue that together. Little JB weld. So there you go. And we'll let her set. There's a big storm brewing on the south side and tearing up the south side of Oklahoma City right now. Got some hail going on and stuff. So I want to go inside and sit in front of the magnet box and see what's up. But we'll come back to that later. The switch later. Alright, we've got our ignition back in. We got our wires hooked up. Let's hook a ground up here. See what we can do. Wait for the cement truck to go by. Unbelievable. Okay. Here you go. Hear that? No, beside the train. It's the ignition. Okay, it's clicking on and off. Let's try it. Disco. Okay. Brought to you by the R.J. Allen collection. So R.J. was my father, and I got a bunch of his old stuff and still use it. This is a prime example of Robert Allen engineering. He was not afraid. If anything, he didn't teach me everything I know about mechanics by far. But he was not afraid to take anything apart. He had a thought that if they put it together, he could take it apart and probably fix it. And it was that way, and it was out of necessity that he did that, because he has the same disease as me, and that is no money. So when I can do stuff like this, I 100% blame that on him. How long will that switch last? You know, I don't know. I'll look for another one, but anyways. We have to wire some more stuff. I was looking at something too. Here we have our turn signal switch, and it goes right here. However, inside here there's supposed to be a collar and then a spring of sorts, and then that goes on the top possibly. Yeah, I believe it goes on the top, and it turns that collar and it shuts the turn signal on and off once you have it on. I haven't found it in the Abner Dimwit collection yet. I don't think I have it. So, I don't know what I'm going to do. Of course, I'm going to need another one. I know that. But, what are you going to do? Don't know. Well, we'll have to think about that. So, I'll have to do some more investigating on that. It might be in the Dimwit collection, but it was probably sold on eBay. Okay, about wiring, specifically this car. Each one of these devices has numbers on it. and know how the wires connect to the device. Okay, you do this by logic. Okay, so there's one here that is marked whatever it is, I don't know. Then there's a line of them next to it. So the only one above this is this one. So this line here denotes this line of terminals. And of course the next line is the next line, and so on. So that's how you read that. I'm going to wire this, since this has numbers on it. This has numbers on it. There's several devices in here that have numbers on them, and you can't see them unless you get them wired. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep them as separate as I can without doing stuff like this, where it's all overlapped in a big giant goat screw. And what I'm going to do is have enough lead on them so they can plug into the various holes or whatever. And then of course there'll be big balls of spaghetti everywhere, and I'm gonna take each wire and I'm gonna bring it this way towards this right here, because that holds this main wiring harness, and I'm gonna kind of ball them up the best way I can, and then kind of make it as nice and as neat as I can, and use spot ties and whatnot. So I try to make the spaghetti system as neat as I can, and that's what I hope to do. The rest of these wires, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to address all these wires on the main harness, and I believe most of these wires on the main harness are going to go into the fuse block, probably quite a few. The red and the black, it's their color scheme. Get their man in the end. Yeah, that's a Blue Oyster Cult song. Anyways, the red and the black is going to go down to the brake light switch, so I got to figure out how that's going to go down there. Put your gas tank in, Dan. Okay, sorry. No, I'm going to put that little lawnmower gas tank here because as soon as I get the gas tank in, there's some little bit of gizmotron that's going to need to be fixed. There's I can see two of them right now. It's supplying the master cylinder with fluid, and the speedometer cable is one, but there's also cables and wires that go down in there. And yeah, the last thing I'm going to put in this car is a fuel tank. That's for a fact. So still waiting on Dan to come over and do some buffery on this, some buffery wizardry, and because I can't go very far on it until he does. So I'm going to get as much wiring as I can. I've ordered some parts from Wolfsburg West. Yes, Wolfsburg West, and ordered a headliner and the windshield back glass gasket, quarter glass gaskets, and all the necessary to attach the headliner and the quarter glasses in there. That probably is going to be next, but I can't do that until we get it buffed. So back to the electrical. Okay. Just as I said I was going to do, I'm attaching an original piece of wire that came off the back of that loom. So my reference, I know, will be correct. Originally I had them taped on with just some electrical tape, so I took that off, and now I'm just putting a piece of heat shrink on it to hold it in place. So I have the original wire, so this is green and blue, and so I know that it is for the generator. And this one here is blue, and so I know it's my oil pressure light. Excuse me. And I'm trying to put them on as close of wire as I can get. The gray and red and the gray and the black, they are on the closest wire I could find was white. So that's what I'm using for that. And the red and the black wire, I just have a red wire. The solid black wire is for the, goes back to the power side of the coil, I think number 15. And then the green and black and the black and white, these two, they go to the turn signal switch. Left and right turn signal. The only ones right now that I'm going to hook to anything, I'm going to stick these through where the speedometer would go. And the only ones I'm going to stick to anything are these. They're the gray and black and the gray and red, and they go on this terminal and this terminal of the fuse panel. And I'll look in my Bentley book and see exactly which one. So there you go. Okay, I've started pulling some electrical parts just to try to make sense of some things. And I was thinking that this car has a relay for the horn, but it does not. So if you follow the wiring to the horn, it's directly from the switch. There's the ground right there, and there's the power going to the horn. It looks like power goes to the horn all the time, and it's the ground. And when you ground it, the horn comes on, and there's no relay. So you can forget about that. And then this was with the car originally, and it's corroded a little bit on one end. And what I believe it to be is the light switch. What do they call that? It's not the emergency light switch. Let's see, that would be J, and they would call it, oh, that's a turn signal and flasher relay. J2, oh, that's a dimmer relay, that's what they would call that. The dimmer relay. And I have another one here, but it doesn't look like, and this one was the one that come out of the 69, and it should be round and not square. The Carmen Ghia model looks like that, but it was in that 69, so yeah. See No Reason has the same connections on it. It's Bosch, made in Germany, so I don't see why we couldn't put that into service. I have another light switch here, and it took me a while to figure out what this was. I didn't quite understand what that was. But the numbers on the back of it denote that it is the what's left of the turn signal and emergency flasher relay. That nice brown box I have in there. So, but what we do have is we have some nice wires, and the wires will work perfectly. They're original wires, so they'll fit famously, you know, as well as the wires coming off of the light switch to the relay. They're original. So this is all modular, and each system works off of the fuse panel, you know. So you have a horn, a set of wires going to your horn, and that's all plugs in, and then you have a set of wires that all go to your turn signals, and those all plug in, and then you have a set of lights left and right that all plug in. So it's kind of modular. It's kind of neat because you can, there's like, it's not just a wiring harness, there's like several pieces of the wiring harness. It's kind of neat. You can take everything apart. So interesting, quite interesting actually. I forgot about this. Been a long time. Okay. Alright, I'm going to end this video with this and see if you guys know what's going on here. There is, of course, a bearing in here. Yes, yeah, of course, and spring in the clip and everything like that. And then the turn signal, of course, mounts thusly, right? All right, but if I put it all the way down, there's a gap of about a ½ inch between the steering wheel and the turn signal. And if you look here, there is a set screw right there, and I might just catch the edge of that if I put my set screw in there. But there's also, if you look in here, it's kind of got this little design in there where it's stamped out, and I almost think there's another piece that goes over the top of this that Abner had sold on eBay, and I wondered if you guys might know if there is indeed a piece that goes underneath there, if you ever had one of these apart. Because if I put this here all the way back and I put my steering wheel on as far as she goes, there is a gap back there that you can see, and there shouldn't be a gap that size. Shouldn't be. So if any of you know, shout out, because I can't find a schematic online. I can't find anything that tells me what I need to know. All right, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for wrenching with me. See you guys later.